All right, welcome to Automate All the Things. Usually I have a guest, but today it's just going to be me. So excited to see some new and familiar faces in the chat. So welcome back, Penny, Daniel, Jeff. If you're new here, every week I usually bring on a guest to teach us how to work smarter, not harder, using no-code tools. But I've been off for a couple weeks and I got a bunch of requests around, hey, can I just do a session around just learning Airtable. So that's basically what we're going to do for the next 60 minutes. I'm going to try to teach you basically everything you need to know to be proficient in Airtable. And how I'm going to do this is I've actually been working on a new course around Airtable called The Ultimate Guide to Airtable, which I've been recording for over a month now. And so, yeah, I'm going to kind of use the outline of that course to teach you step by step everything you need to be proficient in Airtable. I wanted to keep this very fun and make sure you get value out of coming live. So there's a poll in the chat asking you which use case you want to build for me to build with. So there's CRM, project management, content calendar. It looks like project management is in the lead. I'm going to leave it another minute before we cut this off. And then I'm going to start jumping in and building a project management use case, teaching you the basics of Airtable. And if you're new here, please feel free to use the chat throughout. I want to make sure that you get value out of coming to this stream. So I'm going to answer every single question in the chat. So please don't hesitate to drop something in the chat. So as I see the poll kind of wavering, we've got a tie between CRM and project management. Let's talk a little bit about, the outline for today and how we're going to go ahead and do this. But yeah, and it's also let me know in the chat what level of proficiency you are in Airtable. So I know that we have some experts, but I do want to make sure that we have some beginners as well. So go ahead and drop in the chat where you are in terms of Airtable expertise, beginner, intermediate, expert, let me know. All right, so let's go into this Airtable base that has the different sections of my course that I'm working on. So I've got introduction, what's possible with Airtable, basics of Airtable, Airtable views, database basics, automation, collaboration, sync, interfaces, extension, and then let's build. So our goal for today is to get through as much of this as possible. I think if we can get to collaboration or sync, you should be comfortable in Airtable. So that's my goal for today, and I'm going to afford myself 5 minutes per section. So we've got a lot of beginners, and that's super exciting. So Daniel, welcome. Didi, Risha, Penny, I know that you're an expert. You're just too humble to say so. So welcome. And really my goal for this session is to make sure that you understand the basics of Airtable. We're going to go 5 minutes per section. And, these are the different lessons in the course itself. That I go deeper on. But our goal for today is just go through section by section to make you feel comfortable. And obviously, if you like this, sections, I'm actually going to drop a link in the chat to buy the course before it's ready. So I'm about 70% ready. So if you want to kind of have it right away and learn as I create the course, you can go ahead and buy it in the chat. So that link should pop up soon. Cool. Okay, let's get started. I'm excited to have beginners, so please throughout Risha, Didi, Daniel, Penny, or even if you're an expert, feel free to ask questions. So I actually have a timer set up, so we're going to give ourselves five minutes per section. Let's go ahead and start that timer. There we go. Okay, so first is basics of Airtable. So essentially, we are going to create a CRM today. So that is what one. And so when you think of an Airtable base, the fundamental pieces you need to understand is that there are tables and records. So tables are for a specific idea, type of information that you're tracking. If we're thinking of a CRM, the information we're going to want to track is probably something like contacts. We're going to want companies, the deals, right? So we're going to imagine a sales pipeline. So the first thing is that tables are for specific types of information that you're going to track. So we're going to call our first table contacts. So if you're familiar with spreadsheets, this should be quite intuitive, right? So our first table is contacts. And then every single record in that table is going to be for a contact. So each one of these records, and we have 3 that are already created, are going to be for specific contacts. And then every field is going to be for information we want to track across all of our contacts. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and delete these fields. And let's say our first 3 contacts are Penny, Risha, and oops, I gotta press enter there. Penny, Daniel, and Risha. Those are the 3. I can add a new record for a new contact. Didi is going to be my 4th contact. So every record in your table is one item of that list. So every record in my contacts table is going to be a contact. Now, if you're thinking about it, well, there's probably additional information you want to track for each one of your contacts. You maybe want to track their email, phone number, right? Those feel like reasonable things to track for your different contacts. So we're going to go ahead and add fields for those. So let me go ahead and create an email field. And you'll notice a difference with spreadsheet is that here we're specifying what type of information we're going to put in our CRM. And that's important because that allows us data validation, and it'll allow us to create views, which I'll talk about right after this. Okay, so I've got Penny at, let's just do email@example.com. So we're going quickly here. And I'm just going to copy paste that. How's the speed so far? We're about halfway through Airtable basics. Now you'll notice that there are a lot of field types. You can add attachment, checkboxes, multi-select, single selects, phone number. Let's go ahead and add a phone number. All right, Daniel, makes sense. Awesome. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 2, 2. So nothing too out of the ordinary so far. And then I want to kind of add specific, I want to add, say, a single select here. So what could we tag people with? So let's say we want to do department. What department do those people work in? I have IT. So you'll notice that I'm creating my own drop down here, my own selector. So let's say they work in HR, executive. There we go. And then I could select for each one of these people what department they're in. I can also give them a status, right? So another single select. Let's say I reached out and I have discussion and maybe they're, did not respond. Those are the 3 kind of statuses that I have for people. And this will have implications when it comes to views. Okay, we have a minute here. We're adding little, I wanted to make sure I don't go over because that's something I do a lot of. So let me know if this makes sense. You have your tables, which are specific ideas or types of information you want to track. Then you have your records, which is an item of that type. And then you have your fields, which are information you want to track for every item in that list. So those are the kind of key principles you need to know when building in Airtable. I'm just going to quickly add a second table, which I'm going to call companies. And I have some mock data here. So I have some company names. I'm just going to plop in here, and this will be good for the next step. Boom. Go ahead and delete these fields. All right. We got 5 seconds here. That was the section. That was our first section. Congratulations, everyone. All right. So now we understand tables, fields, and records. So congratulations. That's worth the confetti. We finished our first section with 5 seconds to go. Very impressive. Now, let's imagine that we're working out of this CRM and we're in our contacts table and we have hundreds of contacts, right? Yeah, good job, us. We're doing great. Hey, Joey, good to see you. We have, 50, 60, 70 contacts. And we're starting to think of I can't manage all of these contacts, or I don't want to necessarily see all of that information at once. I want to see a subset of the information in any table. So when you think of subset of information in Airtable, you're going to think of views. I got to reset the timer. Forgot to reset the timer. Okay, we're back. So we'll give ourselves an extra minute. Views are extremely important. So views are the ability to configure you can configure a view to view a subset of the information. That's a lot of theory. Let's go ahead and build a new view. So I already have a grid view, so I'm gonna call this all contacts. And then let's say I only wanna see the contacts I've reached out to. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new view, and I'm gonna call this reached out to. I'm going to create that view. And here you see the view configuration, the view toolbar. There's a lot I can do here. I can hide information. Let's say I'm calling these people, so I don't need to view their email. I can filter information out. I can say only show me records where, and in this case, we want to say where the status is reached out. Now notice that I have many operators here. I can say is not, is any of, right? I can filter really granularly for my information. Then I could group, right? Just to show you what grouping is. Let's go to all contacts. And let's group by status. This creates buckets for information of the same type, often used with a single select. Let's go back to our reached out to. So I'm just going through the view bar here. I can sort. Doesn't really make sense here. Maybe I'll sort by department, and this will sort it by the order of the single select. So if I change this, you'll notice that it resorts, but you can sort on deal size or by date you reached out to. Actually, that actually makes sense. Let's add a new field that is date reached out to. And we're going to add a date field. And let's say I reached out to Didi on Friday, and I'm going to reach out to Penny on Tuesday. I've just added a new field. I can go ahead and sort by that date. There you go. And now I'm sorting by that date. I can add color, and I can adjust the row configuration. Now these are view configurations, and I'm using that word explicitly because we are not changing the information in our table. I have not changed any of the information. If I go back to view and all contacts, I see that I still have my information. So just because I've filtered out information from my table does not mean that I am deleting that information. So view configurations do not impact your information, but views are what I call working views. So that means any changes to your information are reflected everywhere. So for instance, let's say Daniel is in reached out. That is a change we've made to Daniel's information. And if I go to reached out to, you'll notice that Daniel is now here, right? So changes to your information, to your records are reflected everywhere across your table, which makes sense. You don't want one view not to be reflected elsewhere. Now I have a minute and a half, and in the course, I go really into detail here around different view types. So we've been working out of the grid view. So all contacts and reach out to are grid views, but you have the option of creating many different types of views. Let's explore Kanban with the minute and a half that we have here. And let's sort them by status. This creates a left to right organization of your information, stacking them by a single select. So this is very practical if you have a project status, task status, a deal pipeline like we have here. And just like any other view, the Kanban view is a working view. It means you can move information from one bucket to another. And if you understand the principle of views here, is that this change is we've changed Daniel's status. So that change will be reflected everywhere. So if I go to all contacts, you'll notice that Daniel is in discussion and that Daniel has left the reached out to view because we are filtering on the status. So I think Joey says it best. It's a great swim lane visualization. It creates buckets around information of the same type. So similar to the grouping here, makes it a little more intuitive, and you can create a Kanban. Just with the 20 seconds I have left, because I do see that project management actually won out, but I left the poll on for too long, you can create a calendar view. So here I can put my records on a specific calendar. In this case, it's a date we reached out to, but it's particularly useful for content calendar use cases or even project management with task due dates. Okay, how do we feel about views? We understand tables, records, fields, and now we understand how to get a subset of the information out of any of the tables with views. So next, we're going to talk about database basics. And I might actually spend 10 minutes here instead of 5 because this is super, super important. So again, let me know in the chat if things are going smoothly, if we're feeling good. Awesome. You guys are awesome. Cool. Okay. So this is where I think for folks who are spreadsheet users, you might be saying, oh, what's so special here? Right? We've been working in tables. Those are kind of like the different worksheets that I have in a spreadsheet. Fields, I can kind of remake that. But really where I think Airtable and just generally relational databases shine is this ability to link information across tables. So let me just take a moment here, confetti off. Let's go back into our contacts. Let's go into our all contacts view. So I'm going to explain this in 2 different ways. 5 minutes on each. Hopefully you'll understand one of the 2 ways I speak to. In the course, I just dropped the link in the chat. You get $250 off if you're one of the first 10 students with first 10. So yeah, so if you're interested, I'm going to explain it like I do in the course in more detail. So the first way is you might be saying, okay, well, these people work at a company. And I might want to say, I want to single select for that company. I want to say, well, Penny works at, let's go, let me actually delete this table. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. Let's say I create a new field and I call company. I'm going to call this a single select. And let me just go into my fake data. Got a lot of feedback that my fake data is bad. So I'm just going to get some fake names. Here we go. So Penny works at Mylan Pharmaceuticals. So I added that to the single select and I have that option. So that is where Penny works. Let's go DD works at Acorn Inc. Let's just type that in. There we go. And then let's do one more company, for instance. Let's say Ohm Laboratories. That is the 3rd option here. And Risha also works at Mylan Pharmaceuticals. Now, you might say this works, but eventually you might say, well, I want more information around this company. Maybe I want to know what, field they're in. Maybe I want to know how many people work at that firm. Maybe I want to know how many people am I speaking to at that firm that will incrementally increase as I speak to more people. I want to identify very easily the firms where I'm not speaking to many people. Then you might say, well, let's create a new table. Let's create a company table. Well, that is exactly what you can do, but you also want to maintain that relationship. You want to say Penny works at Mylan, DD works at Acorn, but you want the ability to add additional information around these companies. So in that case, we're going to create a linked record, right? So I'm going to customize these fields. I'm going to turn this single select into a linked record. So we're going to create a new table from our existing options. Now again, might sound confusing, but here we go. Let's just do it. And now you'll notice that there is now a company table. Let's delete the ink. It misinterpreted one of the spaces. And now we're saying, okay, well, I still have that connection. I still have Penny works at Mylan, DD works at Acorn, Daniel works at Ohm, Risha works at Mylan, but now I have this new company table with that information, and I have the inverse relationship. I have Penny and Risha work at Mylan, Daniel works at Ohm, and DD works at Acorn. But the advantage here is I can add additional information. I said, what industry are they in? So I can add a new single select, right? And I could say, well, this is pharmaceutical. And just for example, let's say my other one is IT. Boom, IT. So now I can keep adding information. Maybe I have a deals table and I want to go ahead and say, I have this deal at this company. So take a moment here. What we've done is we've taken a relationship. We've said Penny works at this company. We've created a table that has the inverse relationship. We have these contacts at this company. And now we can add additional information about that company. And what happens is, let's say we reach out to, let's say Joey. If I come here, I can associate information across my tables. I can say Joey works at Ohm Laboratories. And if I go to company, I see that Joey is part of Ohm Laboratories. Hey, Joey. So let me know in the chat if that way of explaining linked records makes sense to you, right? I'm actually going to go through another 5 minutes where I explain this in a different way completely. And I found that one of the two ways usually resonates. You start with a single select, and that's actually in practice how often this happens. You create a single select for information you want to track, and then you say, oh, we need additional information about this. Let's create a separate table. Makes sense? Did anyone find that unclear? I want to do want to spend 5 minutes talking about the other way of doing this in the other direction. Okay, so let me know in the chat. Now let's go to way number 2. Okay, just gonna reset the timer. I like this timer. It forces me to not go on tangents. Now let's imagine that we have deals. Actually, would deals make sense? Yeah, I think so. So essentially we have deals, right? So we're going to create a new table of deals. And let's delete the basic fields. And let's go ahead and, deal value. That's going to be a currency field. And yeah, let's create that field. Let's say 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. Let's just put company for now as a single line text. So, and I'm just going to copy paste them as an example. I'm just doing an example. This is like the spreadsheet way of doing it, right? Where we have a deal at each one of these companies, and I have a status. So really quickly, just setting that up. So, open negotiation. I am not a salesperson. I do not know what the statuses should be, but you have full control here. Closed, closed won, closed lost. Okay. Now, as I'm creating those statuses, you might think, hey, this is a good opportunity to create a Kanban view, and you'd be absolutely right. But we have 3.5 minutes, so no diddly-daddling here. Okay. Now, as you're seeing, there's an association here between company and deals that is extremely natural, right? So we have these companies and we have a deal. We're trying to close a deal for these companies. So ideally, what I would like is in my companies table, being able to see what deals do we have at each one of these companies, and vice versa. In my deals table, I would like to see, well, what company is this associated to, and what additional information do I have about that company? Do I have the information around the contacts? I have that information in other places in my table. So in my base, is that I should be associating information across tables. Now to do that, we're going to create a linked record field. A linked record field lets you associate information across two tables to say this record is associated to that record in that table. Examples of when you would do that would be deals to companies, project to tasks, students to classes, content to objectives, furniture to rooms. Really, when you start thinking in terms of relational databases, they're just everywhere. They're literally everywhere. Departments to employees. There's no limit here. So what we're going to go ahead and do is create an association between our companies and our deals table by creating a linked record field. So I'm going to create a company field. I'm going to link to another record, and I'm going to link to company, link to another table. Apologies. I'm going to create that field. Now you might say nothing has happened, but here when I click the plus button now, I see all of my existing companies. So Mylan Pharmaceuticals, Ohm Laboratory, Acorn Inc. Right, so we can actually go ahead and delete this field because we've created that association. And let me just call this, big deal with Mylan, massive deal with Ohm, and a small deal with Acorn. Now, if I go over to company, you'll notice that I see the inverse relationship. I see that I have a deal with Mylan, and that first deal is called Big Deal with Mylan, right? And so on and so forth. Now, again, you might say, what is the value of this? Well, now I can very easily, 1 minute left, see the existing information that I have from my deals table, right? So what I just did there, I went to Mylan, I clicked on it from my deals table, and I opens up my existing record. Now, just linking information across tables is extremely useful because you can associate information and see that information. Now, a few things that this opened up, and I have 30 seconds here. I might spend 2 minutes. If you give me extra 2 minutes, we're about halfway through here. I do want to spend an extra 2 minutes talking about what this opens up. So in the course, I actually spend a good deal amount talking about count, lookup, rollup, and things like that. So let's take a 10 seconds here around just want to make sure I'm answering any questions. So this training is going to be an hour, Daniel. But the course I think is closer to 3-4, where I really dive into everything I mentioned here. Okay, that was the last 5 minutes. I want to spend an extra 2 minutes that I'm not going to time myself on talking about what can we do with linked records once we've created them. So now that you see I have this information, so if I go to my deal, I can click on the company and I have all of these fields. Now you can imagine that I want to pull that information across tables to say, well, I would love to see the industry of the company in my deals table. And if something changes, I want to be able to update it in one place and see that change reflected everywhere. So here I'm exploring, I'm just going to use one as an example, which is a computed field. Computed fields let you pull information across tables and truly have one place where you update information and see those updates reflected everywhere. So there are a few types. There are count, lookup, rollup. We haven't even talked about the formula field either, which is a different type of computed field. But let's just use the lookup. So I want to pull in the department of the company that the deal is with. So I'm going to call this department. I'm going to use a lookup field. It's going to ask me, well, what linked record, what table should I go to and look up the information? We only have one. It's going to be the company. And then it's going to ask us, well, what field should I pull in from that table? I want to pull in industry. So let's create that field. And now you'll notice that we have the company's department in our deals table. Now you notice I can't change this information. I can't click, I can't do anything. Let me actually make this a little larger. And the reason is because this information comes from my company's table. It comes from Mylan Pharmaceuticals. So if I come here to company, I go to Mylan, and let's say I made a mistake. They're in fact in IT, and Ohm is in pharmaceuticals. I've updated this information. If I go over to the deals, you'll notice that these two have changed because now Mylan, where it's pulling the information from, has been updated, and we have a single source of truth. And that is the value of the lookup. So if you use VLOOKUPs in Excel, they're quite finicky. In Airtable, you update information in one place, and via lookups, that gets reflected everywhere. Now, a few more things I talk a little bit more of in the course are count and rollup, which are different types of computed fields that let you do different important things in Airtable. So, okay, that was the aside. How are we feeling? Too quick, too slow, just fast enough? I have kind of, I think, 2 more sections I can want to get through, and that I'll feel comfortable that I've taught you enough to at least get started in Airtable. So Joey is an expert in Airtable, so obviously I'm going too slow for Joey. Okay, cool. So next, let's talk about automation. Now, awesome. Thanks, Didi. Fantastic. Okay, let me put my timer back on. Okay, timer back on. Okay, so I got 5 minutes to talk to you about automation, which is, not enough, but we're going to try to do our best. So now imagine a world in which you're adding information in, you're kind of creating a single source of truth, and there's probably things that you want to happen on top of this base, right? So you might say, oh, when I create a new deal, can I create tasks to sign the contract, to upload information. Or you could say, hey, when we close a deal, could we notify the team? Maybe you want to say, hey, when we close a deal, we want to go out and tweet about the fact that we've closed a deal. We hired a new employee and we want to send a Slack message or tweet about it publicly that we hired this amazing person. So all of that have the same structure. We're saying if this happens in my Airtable base or elsewhere, I want that to happen. If we close a deal, go ahead and create tasks. If we close a deal, send a notification. Airtable has Airtable automations, which are trigger actions that allow you to create logic on top of your Airtable base. Again, that was a lot of theory for something that is very simple in practice once we get going. So let's go ahead and create an automation that says, when I close a deal, so when a deal goes into closed one, we want to send a notification to the team. And maybe if I'm quick enough, create 2 tasks in a new task table to sign the contract, to, buy a bottle of champagne, whatever salespeople do when they close a deal. So we're going to go into our automations tab here in the top left, and we're going to create a new automation. So I'm going to call this automation deal closed. Now, every automation has the same structure. First, it has a trigger. This is what needs to happen in Airtable or elsewhere for this automation to run. Now, remember what I said. I said when a record in the deals table goes to closed one, I want to send a Slack notification. So that first part is my trigger. You have many options here, and I really go through each one in the course. But in our case, we want to use when record matches condition. You can also use when a form is submitted, when a record is created, when record updated. It does take a little bit of practice to understand in which one to use when. But frankly, if you have one thing to remember from this hour, when record matches conditions is about 80% of use cases. So in this case, we're saying when a record in my deals table, it's a little weird that it's, okay, there we go. I'll have to submit a bug for that one. So when a record in my deals table changes status to close one, go ahead and run this automation. We're not saying what the automation does just yet. We're just saying when a record matches conditions, go ahead and run whatever is here. Let's choose a record. Let's use this small deal with Acorn as an example. And then what I want to do is I want to send a Slack message. So you notice that there are many actions. I can create records, update, run script, find, and the actions are in 3 buckets. You can send a notification, you can do things in Airtable, or you can send information to other applications. So we're just going to do the first example of sending a message in Slack. Let's go to my Slack channel, and I have a channel called Notif Stream, or just Stream. Notif is probably better. There we go. Okay, I'm just configuring this action, and I have full control over this message. I can say, we just closed the deal with, and here I ideally want to put the name of the company we just closed a deal with. That was pulled in step 1. So I can click plus, and here I have all of the information from my previous steps. So I have company, Acorn Inc. There we go. So we just closed the deal with worth. Let's click the plus button, and I want the deal value worth $30,000. There we go. There's a few steps here. Let's generate a preview. So we just closed a deal with Acorn Inc. worth $30,000. Now let's actually put this in action. Does this work? We've got 30 seconds. How confident are we that this works? I'm like 95%. I'm 95%, pretty confident here. So what do we need to do in order to trigger this automation? We need to move a record into closed one. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So our expectation here that this runs an automation that sends a Slack message. A few ways we can check. We can go to automation, run history, and we see that it's run successfully, and we could see the Slack message. But the way that I prefer is let's just go to Slack. Boom. We just closed a deal with Ohm Laboratories worth $20,000. Congratulations to us. We just learned automation, and we triggered this automation successfully, and we've closed a deal worth $20,000. I think that's worth a little bit of confetti. So congratulations to you all. All right, we're doing good. We're doing good. What are we on time? Okay, we got about 15 minutes, and then I do want to spend a little bit of time answering all of your questions. So do again and drop them in the chat if you do have questions. I'm happy to answer them at the end or through, as I go along. Okay, where are we? We're doing good. We're doing good. Whew, a lot. Okay, so we've done basics of Airtable, Airtable views, automation. Let's talk about collaboration and then sync. And maybe I'll do like a minute on the rest just to make sure you are kind of confident going forward. Okay, let's talk about collaboration. So far, I've been working by myself out of my Airtable base. So there's a few things I want to let you know around how to collaborate in Airtable. Let me actually look at my lesson plan so that I am showing you, okay, how to share a base, what are the view permissions, sharing a view, collaboration best practices. Okay, let's do the 5-minute version of that. So let's reset the timer. There we go. Okay, collaboration in Airtable in 5 minutes. Okay, so the first thing is how to invite people into your Airtable base. So you might say, hey, I want to work with my collaborators, my different salespeople. How do I go and invite them into my Airtable base? You can go ahead and click share. Now you can invite someone. So let me go ahead and invite myself to the base. I do that quite often, surprisingly. So I just invited myself. And the first thing you need to know is when you invite someone to an Airtable base, they get access to your whole base. Every table, every record, every view, they get access to the whole thing. There is no way to invite someone to your Airtable base and not give them access to the whole base. Now I'll talk to you about how you can share subsets of information in about 2.5 minutes. But when you invite someone to your base, you give them access to the whole base. That does not mean that they can do anything in your Airtable base. There are 4 different permission levels. Creator, that's what we've been working on so far, which gives you full access. You can run automations, you can configure any table, any view. Then you have editor. I would say that 80% of the collaborators you're going to invite should be invited as editors. If you don't expect someone to work on the base with you, to create tables, to manage automations, invite them as an editor. Editors can create records, can edit and create records, and create views, but they cannot configure tables or fields. So that means they can't add new fields, add new tables. Editor is 80% of the people you're going to invite. Commenter means that they can comment on records and create personal views. I won't talk about those, but those are just views that are only for yourself. But they cannot edit information or add, obviously, tables or fields or things like that. And read-only cannot edit or comment. They can only see the information in your Airtable base. So the vast majority of the people you're going to invite are editors. Now in the course, I do actually show you what that is like one by one. So I go through the experience. I won't do that here. So a natural question that you might have is, well, how do I share a subset of the information in my base? Maybe I just want to share this deal. I just want to share the deals that we've won. That's a good example, right? I want to give the executives an overview of the different deals that we've closed. I want to share a subset of the information of my base. I keep saying subset of the information in my base, and what, if you remember 35 minutes ago, and I know that it's been a lot of information I've sent your way, you should be thinking about views. So views are the ability to see the information either in a different way or filter down to the information you want, to the records more specifically. So let's go ahead and create a view that has the information we want to share. So I'm going to call this closed one. Create a new view. We're going to filter down where, show me records where status is closed one. There we go. And let's say this is the information I want to share. I don't want to share the department, right? Just these 2 records or any records that have this criteria. They're in closed one in my deals table. I can go ahead and share the view. This will create a shareable grid link. This will create a link that anyone could access and pull information from. They cannot edit that information, right? It's very important to remember that. They can just see that information, but they do not need access to your whole base. I feel pretty confident. I'm going to go ahead and share that in the chat. Go ahead and open it on your side if you want. I'm going to open it here as well. I've got a minute. Okay. And I can share a subset of the information in my base using shared views. Any changes to, let's say the deal value is 50,000 instead of 20,000, that will be reflected upon refresh, not live, in my shared view. So anyone coming to this can see the information up to date. So that is how, awesome. I'm so glad it works. How you share a subset of the information in your base using shared views. Now there's a lot more to it here, right? You have a lot of configuration options. You can embed. I haven't even talked about the form view, which is a way of getting information into your base without giving access to the base to collaborators. But that broadly is the kind of thinking you should have. First, if you want to give full access to your base to someone, you can invite them as a collaborator. That is perfect for folks who are going to update information, add information to your workflow. Ideally, invite them as an editor. If they just need oversight or access to a subset of the information in your base, go ahead and share a view. Whew. Okay. Now's a good time. Grab a glass of water. Let's see what we got left. Okay. So collaboration, there's a lot I didn't talk about. I didn't talk about view permissioning. I didn't talk about different collaboration best practices. But, you know, overview. It does, Anthony, thank you. You're completely right. That's really does. Boom. Fantastic. Okay, so Airtable sync. Whew. Okay, now's a good time to drop your questions. I'm probably going to leave 5 to 7 minutes at the end. I want to make sure that you guys get value from coming live. I do appreciate that very, very much. So do go ahead and drop your questions and I will kind of make sure I answer them. Now there's a lot more to Airtable, right? Sync, interfaces, extensions that I don't have time to talk about. But I think a big part and an underused part of Airtable is Airtable sync. The Airtable sync lets you pull information. Let me restart that. Let's start our timer. That's a great question, Daniel. I'll answer that at the end, actually. Okay, let's start our timer. 5 minutes, talk about Airtable sync. So I just showed you a shared view, right? So a shared view lets you kind of see the information, but not act on that information. And it lives outside of your Airtable base. Now you may want to say, okay, well, I want to pull that information into my own Airtable base. That could be information that lives in another Airtable base or information that lives in another application. Right? Maybe you have all of your assets in a Dropbox file and you want to be able to say this piece of content, use that asset. So you can say, I can't use that asset again. Or you may have your HR team has the directory of every employee with their salary, their date of birth, and they've created a shared view with everyone's with their name and their department, hiding the salary and other information. You can access that shared view, but ideally you want that information in your Airtable base so you can associate that across tables. Now let me try what is the best way of doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and imagine a CSM table. So a CSM table, a customer success management, takes these closed won deals and let's say creates tasks, right? Onboarding tasks. So I see that the second most popular use case is project management. So I'm trying to bring some of that in right now. Let's go ahead and create a new table. This is going to be customer onboarding. And I have these tasks. And then task 1 is, onboard customer, sign contract, unblock Okta, just different examples, right? So onboard customer, sign contract, and unblock Okta. So this is a separate base, right? So this is the CSM base, and they don't have visibility on the deals that are closed, right? So maybe I'll add a status. Does this make sense? So to do and then done. Okay, just trying to set this example up nicely here. Done, to do, boom. Boom, okay, I got it set up. Boom. Now, what I want is to take these closed won deals and have them as a table that is always up to date in my Airtable base to say this task is associated to this client. Another example that comes to mind right now is company objectives. Maybe you have a table of company objectives and each team has a project base that's a little different, right? They want to associate different objectives to their own projects. So let me go ahead and first copy paste this URL. And if I go to add or import, you notice that I can sync data from. I'm going to select Airtable base. And the way I like to do this is just to copy the shared view. I just copied this right here. I go next. Oh, I don't allow data to be synced. That's actually a great error to do. Let's go back. Let me go back to Airtable here. And I forgot to set this up properly, which is perfect for a teaching moment. Let's go into CRM. Let's go into that shared view. And you'll notice that there's this option to allow data in this view to be synced to other bases. I've turned that on. I've copy paste this URL. Let me do that again. Next, this should work now. All right, we're gonna sync all the fields. I'm not gonna go into these settings. And 1 minute, okay. Airtable sync in 1 minute, let's go. So now you notice that I have those two same records that I have here. Now you notice I can't edit these, right? Because this is the destination. All of the information in this view, in this table, sorry, comes from here. It is synced from. This is the source. So let's say we change the deal value to 100,000. I'm going to go to customer onboarding. I'm going to refresh this. Now note that this syncs every 5 minutes automatically on your end. I go and sync. Now I have 100,000. That information comes from that view we synced from the original table. But other than that information, it acts like any other table. I can associate information across tables. I can say, what company is this associated to? I can link to my closed one, like that, create field. Now I have the ability to associate, right? Let's do the first 3 tasks with massive deal, and then the last 3 with acorn. There we go, acorn. There we go. So now I have this table that pulls information from another Airtable base that is always up to date. That also means that if we close a new deal, so let's go to our grid view. Let's move this to closed one. That means that it enters this closed one view. If I refresh here, it's here as well. And we're syncing from here. So my expectation is if I go here and wait 5 minutes, but I won't make you do that. Let's sync now. There's my new record. So think of the different use cases. You might say, hey, that information lives somewhere else, but I want to pull in a subset of that information into my workflow to truly create a single source of truth. They can work on their stuff on their end, right? But that important information can be pulled into my workflow, right? So Airtable Sync is extremely, extremely powerful to enable these cross-functional collaborations where someone's working on something and you want to be updated and pull that information into your Airtable base. Now, last thing here, just trying to be conscious of time, is that other than the fact that these records are pulled from the source, this acts like any other table. I can create views. I can run automations on this table. Anything we did up until now is possible on a synced table. Whew. Okay, there's a lot more to dig into. Airtable Sync. You can sync from external sources. You can actually sync from multiple sources at once. I dig into all of that in the course and kind of give a different example, probably a little better than this one. But yeah, that was Airtable Sync. Okay, cool. So I've I've got 5 minutes here. I won't have time to dig into interfaces, extensions, build examples, low code. So do check out AATT.io, or there's going to be a link in the description to join. There is no affiliate link, but if you do want to sell the course, let me know. DM me on Twitter. I'm more than happy to give you an affiliate link and figure that out. I'm honestly just been heads down recording this. I haven't thought about anything about releasing it. But yeah, I do want to answer your question. So there's a question. Do we need a paid plan? No, most of what I've shown so far is available on the free plan. So every view type is available on the free plan. You do have a limited amount of automations. I do think you also have a one sync available on the free plan, if I'm not mistaken. So you can get really, really far. I always try to show the free stuff just so you can build something extremely powerful before you start paying for Airtable. That's fantastic. So Penny asks, can you please talk more about the course? Yeah, I'm happy to, obviously. So I released the Essential Guide to Airtable about 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more now. And this is just a refresh of that. Well, just a refresh. It is what I'm hoping to be the most comprehensive course on Airtable, but just general relational databases out there. Everything, how to think about building your Airtable bases, how to structure them appropriately, how to organize them, how to bring collaborators on successfully, and every single, I think, important feature of Airtable, and really setting you up for relational databases, writ large, but specifically in Airtable. So I will be kind of dropping a code, which is first 10. For the first 10, I have about, I would say 70% of it done, where you can watch the first 5 sections, give me feedback, join the Slack community where you can ask questions. And as those sell out, I will keep adding new discount codes in the description of this video. So if first 10 is out, I'm going to release first 20, so on and so forth, until I release it publicly, which might take a couple of months, just as I complete all of the recording. Cool. Well, I'm happy that that could help your friend learn Airtable. Any questions before I sign off? I know that was so much information. It was a lot of information for me as well, but I was hoping to show you the basics of Airtable, but also the power that it has. We just built, what is a functional CRM in about 45 minutes that can send notifications, sync to other bases. There is a lot you can do in a very short amount of time. And I haven't even talked about interfaces. I haven't talked about extensions. I haven't talked about a lot of what Airtable can do to truly create smooth workflows. So, no questions? Okay, well, that was it for this week on Automate All the Things. I'm actually going to be traveling the next couple of weeks, so I'm happy to announce that Connor Finlayson is going to replace me, host Automate All the Things, I'm hoping, for the next 2 weeks. If we can work through some potential technical issues. So I hope to have Connor host next week with a guest that is to be determined once we work through said technical issues. But I'm extremely excited to have Connor host. Connor and I have been working closely together on Code Meets No Code. I trust him dearly with Automate All the Things, and I think you guys will have immense fun. And I'll try to jump in. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe, do all that good YouTube stuff. Really helps people discover the channel. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Penny, that it was succinct and clear. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Didi. Hope that this was useful. Do hope to see you back next week and the week after that with Connor. And I'll be back near the end of September to host it again. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Daniel, Didi, Anthony, everyone who joined, Joey. До свидания. Хороший день всем. Yeah, bye, everyone.